Nous allons continuer la prise de parole après ce moment très émotionnel. Je crois que nos caméras ont capté cet instant qui est aussi signe d'engagement à l'appel qui vient de nous être lancé. Donc nous continuons la parole avec Dr Afif Safieh qui est du Fatah Palestine.
Thank you, Chantal. Dear friends, dear comrades. Paradoxically, in Israel and Palestine, it seems that the oppressor hates the victim much more than the victim hates the oppressor. And it seems to us, 440 days after the beginning of the most recent conflagration, that Israel behaves towards us, the Palestinians, as though it is daily retaliating for all the persecution that they have endured throughout history on other continents. Ladies and gentlemen, Palestine, Israel has always been for political personalities and political parties a test between courage and cowardice, political courage and moral cowardice. I hope that our rendezvous with history and our rendezvous with political courage is not in the too distant future. What's happening today in Palestine, Israel, is a genocide in Gaza and a politicide in the West Bank. Politicide meaning the intentional, constant, perseverant attempt to suffocate and to strangle the Palestinian emerging entity. In Gaza, what has been happening in front of our eyes with the world watching impotent, what has been happening is the total destruction of a society of 2.25 million. Over 80% of the habitations demolished, all the universities and all of the hospitals are incapable of functioning. And let me tell you, the death rates among the medical institution, among the journalistic community is atrocious and apparently by far higher and incomparable with other conflicts. Yet it continues day after day, day after night. Now, I personally blame the self-inflicted impotence of the international community. We have paid a price, we in Palestine, after the First World War and mainly after the Second World War. And the world applauded our ordeal. We have become the victims of European history. And as a result, we never got our reasonable share of sympathy, solidarity, and support. But things are changing these days. And I'm proud to say that within the American Jewish community, all those voices we have heard in Washington and New York saying not in our name. Now, unfortunately, dear friends, the evolution among Jewish diaspora communities has been extremely positive, constructive, and promising. But unfortunately, the evolution within Israeli society is in the opposite direction, and we have witnessed year after year, decade after decade, a radicalization. And I always used to tell my Israeli interlocutors, in a democracy, if a few are guilty, all are responsible. And whenever they are having their regular elections, parties compete in their denial of the Palestinian existence, the Palestinian right. You know, the writer, philosopher, historian Isaac Deutscher had the most generous definition on the human level of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I say generous because he excluded the machinations of great powers and the calculations of a certain political movement. He said on the human level, this conflict is as though it is between a person who had to jump out of a building on fire, landed on another person whose back he broke. And each time this person tries to stand up, he receives a beating for fear that he might ask for justice or seek revenge. Colette, I wonder when enough is enough. I believe that Israeli society owes Palestinian society one day to tell us, sorry, please, and thank you. Instead of the genocide we witnessed impotent, the unbearable images that come from Gaza, even though the international journalistic community is not allowed there. I was asked by friends in this conference, are you hopeful for the ceasefire? Well, the ceasefire is 440 days too late. And I personally blame the American administration for having rendered the international community impotent. Blinken works more for Bibi than he works for Biden. And anyway, Kamala Harris paid a price, an electoral price, during the presidential elections. Everybody now wonders what will be happening with the unpredictable Trump. Let me seize this platform, this important platform of the International Socialist, President Pedro, by saying that the International Socialist, we hope that we will be seeing you at its leadership even more vocal and even more visible on the Palestinian issue. We were encouraged to pursue the diplomatic path in the 70s and the 80s by your predecessors, Pedro, the Bruno Kreisky, the Willy Brandt, the Olaf Palme, the François Mitterrand. And you owe us to help us bring this diplomatic path to fruition. And to tell you frankly, that diplomatic path has been sabotaged deliberately in front of us, all of us, the impotent witnesses. I personally believe that today one has, and I'm a Democrat, unbelievably democratic. I personally believe that what is acceptable today to the Israeli society is unacceptable to the Palestinians, and what is acceptable to the Palestinians is unacceptable to the Israelis. Hence, the international community injecting its input and guiding us with sometimes a little bit of anger and indignation for misbehavior is indispensable. De Gaulle in his final months, and I'm a third world Gaullist, and they don't make them anymore like De Gaulle these days. De Gaulle wanted a sort of elegantly imposed solution on the local belligerent parties. And the flow of the peace process that we have seen throughout the 30 last years, and I was one of its architects, is that too much was left to the local belligerent parties to sort it out. Now, dear friends, we speak of a very asymmetrical situation where Israel was tempted to believe that it could dictate the conditions of outcome. I personally believe that what we need is an elegantly helped, and I will dare use the word forced solution. And I believe the last advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice is extremely useful in our quest for the path towards the future. It is elegantly written, impeccable and immaculate in its clarity, by the International Court of Justice, summarizing all the UN resolutions and what we call international legitimacy. I believe, Colette, and you'll understand what I say, that peace is too important to be left to the Israelis to decide upon. Unfortunately, Israeli society, which is very capricious, by the way, believes that if I vote for Labour, you might get back 85%. If I vote for Gantz, you might get 60%. If I vote for Likud in the past, we would have gotten 40%. And if one votes for Ben-Gvir, we get a kick in the ass. No, peace is too important to be left to the Israelis to decide upon. And in the liturgy of diplomacy, taking resolutions saying, and we invite both parties to go back to direct negotiations, it's blah, blah, blah. It's blah, blah, blah. This is the liturgy of diplomacy that convinces nobody. I personally believe, ladies and gentlemen, we, the Palestinians, have been unreasonably reasonable, Pedro. We, the victims, have moved faster than the Israelis towards beyond double negation, towards mutual recognition. Yasser Arafat led the national Palestinian movement towards the acceptance of the two-state solution, to which Mahmoud Abbas firmly stuck. And we believe in it today, even though some are skeptical about its possibility of being realized. But you need to help us, the international community. And I would like to rely on the different components of the international socialist movement. We are the dynamic vibrant part of our societies. We are agitators of ideas. And I believe we have a historical role to play. Dear friends, even in the bleakest of moments, and today we live in a very bleak moment, I have always, Pedro, believed that Palestine will resurrect. And as you probably know, we in Palestine, we in Jerusalem, we have had a previous experience in resurrection. Thank you.